Hello everyone, my name is Chris Marlene Sosa and today I'm going to talk about child abuse and neglect. What is child abuse? Child abuse is when a parent or a caregiver, through actions or failing to act, causes injury, death, emotional harm, or risk of severe harm to a child. There are many forms of child maltreatment, including neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, exploitation, and emotional abuse. Physical abuse. Physical abuse of a child is when a parent or caregiver causes a non accidental physical injury to a child. There are many signs of child abuse, and in recent research, it was found that 28.3% of adults report being physically abused as a child. This is very high. Um, I believe that in our society today, it shouldn't be happening because we already know what are the consequences of child abuse. These are some of the signs or injury that a child may have or present when being abused. Bruises, blisters, burn, cuts, broken bones, spine, dislocation of joints. Emotional and psychological harm are also included in physical abuse. Another type of abuse that occurs um, a lot in our society and we see in the news all the time is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is occur when an adult uses a child for sexual purposes or involve a child in sexual act. It also this could happen when an older child uses a minor or a younger child for sexual satisfaction or pleasure. Sexual abuse is also a very high. It happens a lot. It was reported that 20.7% of adults were sexually abused as a child. These are some of the signs um, or or things that may show that this sexual abuse happening. Uh, Making a child see a sexual act or making a child um, do or do some sexual thing to another person. This is really common. It's not written in this presentation, but I read recently that sexual abuse usually happen within the family. Usually, somebody that is close to the family is who acts as the abuser. Emotional abuse. This is a big one for me. I think that many time children are being abused emotionally and we don't see the signs until it's too late, when it's already so late that we had to take the child to a hospital or to a mental health facility. But emotional abuse is defined as when a parent or caregiver harms a child's mental and social development or causes severe emotional harm. It is considered emotional abuse. While a single event may be an act of abuse, usually it happens as a pattern of behaviors that causes damage over time. 10.6% of adults report being emotionally abused as a child. I think this number is not so high. I thought it was gonna be higher, but I still think that it's pretty high, knowing the effects of that it may occur when being emotionally abused. These are some of the things that causes that show emotional abuse: rejecting or ignoring a child, shaming or humiliating the child, terrorizing, isolating, correcting the child. These are all signs of child abuse. Um, for my literature review, I chose 5 articles. I think they were very interesting. This one is about how child maltreatment affects the cognitive part of the brain. It shows it the studies show how children that were abused have more problem concentrating or memorizing stuff. I believe that the this article shows a very good point, because when child are being abused, they close themselves and they try to forget stuff, and sometimes they just their memories stop working properly, just trying to forget a bad event that happened to them. Another article was maltreatment in infancy, developmental perspective on prevention and intervention. This one was more about how um, infants are the ones that are in more danger, since they don't have the cognitive or language capacity to understand what's happening to them, and why it's happening to them. The, this population is so vulnerable. They don't have anybody that can speak for them, because basically the abuse happen within the family. So it could be a mom or dad, and they don't have anybody to speak for them if nobody sees the abuse. Another article, this article I found it very interesting. It just shows how when there's a cycle of violence, how boys keep that cycle going, and how when they see more violence, they want to do more violence. When they're being abused, they become more angry and more they want to do more damage, and that's what happens when there's abuse happening to them. This is another article on seeing once the contribution of psychological maltreatment to child and adulthood. I'm sorry about my pronunciation. I'm a little. There's some words that I don't know how to pronounce. Mental health and risk outcome. The mental health and risk outcome of psychological maltreatment in children and adolescents were associated with gender and age baseline. Okay, this is another article. It talks about uh, how the support or the stress it can affect on how the child see the world. When the child sees, when there's a parent that abuse alcohol, or is going through a drug abuse, there's a higher risk for children to be abused. Okay, so now I'm gonna talk about my survey that I did. so I prepared a questionnaire. I asked questions that were answered by yes or no, and other were short answers, and they were based on their child abuse experience, things that happened to them when they were a child. The participants were ages between 18 to 35 years old. Uh, um, so how I did it was I collected all the data, then I went to the SPSS software and entered the questions, and after that I went ahead and inserted the response from each of the participants. Okay, so this is one of the tables. We have a lot of tables in this presentations. This is the age group. This is the ethnicity. It looks like the 20% of the people that responded to my survey or questionnaire were white, Caucasian, or European American. Okay, most of the participants in this survey were females. Okay, these are some of the charts, some of the bars chart from the SPSS program. This is race, education level. It looks like a lot of the participants, well, 20% of them had a 4-year degree. Only one of the person that answered the survey was still going to school, well, graduate school. That's another one. It's another chart on education and how often they felt hungry. Now, it looks like the people that were in a 4-year college graduate, when they were a child, they responded that they were often, sometimes hungry most of the time. This is the house income. Now the bar. This is the number of child that each participant had. Most of the participants were students, so they didn't have any children. Another bar. This is based on the children that they have. Most of the participants were from the Bronx, New York. Following Yonkers. Occupation. It looks like like I said previously, most of the participants are students, and the other two occupations that were there that were more popular, let's say, is cashier and physician assistant. Okay, it's another bar. Relationship status. Only 3 of the respondents were married. 30% of the participants were committed in a relationship, committed to it. Based on it, so another question based on how they felt when they were with a child. They ate enough, had dirty clothes. 65% of the participant responded yes to this question. Okay, what is this is another question that was under survey. What is discipline for you or your brother? Most of them responded that it was getting sent to their room. That was 40% of it. Then the other 35%, their mom talked to them. Only 25% were hit with a bell. Another question. And this is how, this one is about how they feel, how they, if they feel that they belong to their family and friends. 11 of the participants responded that yes, they do belong. Another question about punishment. Okay, this is another question about what happens in your house when you misbehave. 40% of the participants responded that they would get a timeout, and the 35% said that they were getting hit. Okay, this is another question that was on the survey. Questionnaire: when is at home, when you come home? Well, 40% of the participants said that their mom was there. Okay, there's another question that is important. It just says, have you ever been taken to the hospital emergency room because of you were hurt? And it was a tie. It was 50-50. 50% said no, and 50% said yes. That was an interesting response. This is the charge on mental illness. Okay, these are all the questions that were asked in the questionnaire, and these are my reference. I hope you like my presentation. Thank you, and have a nice night.